Well, hi, Nancy and Liz. Welcome to the Moms of Tweens and Teens podcast. I'm so happy that you're here.
We're happy to be here.
It's great to be here.
Well, I am really excited to talk to you today. We are going to talk about the importance of setting up our tweens and teens to go after their goals and dreams. We're going to be talking about the importance of having heroes. We're going to talk about your latest book, Gwen Jorgensen, USA's first Olympic gold medal triathlete. We're going to be talking about that and just how to raise kids that really go after their dreams. And we're going to talk about sports a little bit and values and all of those things. And I want you to introduce yourselves. We can start with whoever wants to go first and tell a little bit about your story and what led you to write this book.
I am Elizabeth Jorgensen, and Gwen Jorgensen is my younger sister. I am currently a high school English teacher. I have creative writing and journalism classes this year. And Mom.
I am Nancy Jorgensen, and I am mother to Gwen Jorgensen and Elizabeth Jorgensen, a retired high school choir director. For many years, I taught choir and directed high school musicals. And now I'm retired from that and writing. And Elizabeth is my writing partner.
And because Gwen knew this, she brought up the idea to us to write a book that would inspire middle grade, that teen and tweens age group, to learn something, to follow their dreams, to see how you can go from just average Wisconsin girl to world and Olympic champion. And not that that would just apply to sports, but how you could apply those concepts to whatever you want to do, be that a chef or a teacher or an architect or an accountant or whatever that might be.
Yeah, I love that. Just love it. And this is geared, your book, is it geared mostly towards middle school girls? Because you saw that there was a gap there, that there weren't any books really portraying female athlete heroes.
That's what it started out as. But we've been hearing lately that adults pick up the book and don't even realize till they're done and look at the description that it was intended for, a middle grade audience. So I think it's middle grade, young adult, and even a quick read for adults.
Yeah, well, it's a very inspiring story. And when I was preparing for this interview, I also looked up Gwen, and we were talking about that and just how inspiring her Instagram is and what she is up to and what she's doing. And it's just an inspiring message of living out our dreams and going after things and taking risks. So I want to hear what it was like for both of you when she made history as the USA's first women to win the Olympic gold medal. Would you say triathlete? Is that how you would say it?
Yep, that's exactly right. So she does triathlon. It's where you swim, you bike, and you run. And she does Olympic distance triathlons. And so those take her about 2 hours to complete. She didn't even know what triathlon was when she was recruited out of college by Team USA. She thought it was Ironman. I don't know if you're familiar with those races. Yeah. And she was like, no, I'm not doing that. Like, no interest. And Team USA said, that's not it. It's a 2-hour race and we'll help you with bike equipment. We'll hook you up with a coach. And as this was unfolding, the family was learning alongside her what it meant to train for a triathlon. She was trying to balance. She was a full-time accountant out of college. So she was balancing that with training for the Olympics. And she slowly started to have more and more success, and she ended up becoming the winningest woman in the history of the sport. She went on this streak of like 17 wins, which is, it's unheard of. And she went into the Rio Olympics as the very clear favorite. And so there was all of this pressure. Like, is she going to perform? Is she going to do what people expected her to do? Mom and I and a group of 18 of us went down to Rio to see the race. We were all together and cheering, and it was amazing. it was just beyond words. It was so exciting to be there and see her be the first woman to win Olympic gold for America. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. What was that like for you, Nancy?
It was nerve-wracking. Gwen was always a swimmer, and then she ran in college, and then she picked up this triathlon with absolutely no experience on a bike. She didn't even own a road bike. And she went from that to this competitive cycling where they ride within inches of each other, and there are crashes, and she had been in a crash. And I just, as her mom, I just always worry when I see her get on that bike and I see them go 40 miles an hour down these hills. And so a lot of it, I was just nervous. I wanted to be excited, but most of it, I was just kind of nervous. And then typically in her races, she would get off the bike and her strength was the run. And so even if she was behind, she'd make up these huge deficits of a minute or a minute and a half and just pass the women ahead of her. And at the Olympics, she didn't do that. She was neck and neck with the defending Olympic champion from 4 years prior. And so it was more nerve-wracking moments of hoping that she would win until the very final steps of the race where she took off and accomplished it. And then it was just celebrate.
Yeah, it's so different to be the mom, isn't it? When you see them, whether it's in a sport or they're standing up and they have the lead, or they have a part and they start maybe forgetting their lines, or just to be watching that, and we feel both excited and scared. And yeah, it's a lot as a parent to be watching that and wanting them to be successful.
That's the whole thing. Is I didn't ever really care if she won a race, but I knew that she wanted it so much and she had invested so much in it that I just always wanted it for her. I wanted her to be happy about it. And that's hard to do. I'm getting a little better at it, but yeah.
Yeah, I love your honesty, because it's true. And I know that moms are relating to that and how you can feel. And I love what one of her friends said in the video that I watched. Her family growing up was a huge part that created that balance and learning that you are more than just this work that you are doing.
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
And you can agree with that, Elizabeth.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Gwen was obsessed with swimming in particular when she was a child. And if mom would have let Gwen, that's all she wanted to do, was to be in the pool, to work on her stroke, to get faster. And mom really required both Gwen and me to be balanced individuals, to play a musical instrument, to do well academically. Our family is really into food. And so, that's another area where we were always cooking together, shopping together, talking about meals together. Like, it was not all about swimming, even though that's probably what Gwen wanted.
Yeah. About the balance. Well, it sounds like it was fun. Like you were able, Nancy, to make it fun. And I feel like it's so easy in our culture today as moms to feel this incredible pressure, and we put it on ourselves to measure our worth as parents based on our kids' performance. And then our kids end up feeling this tremendous amount of pressure to perform, and so much of their self-worth can get caught up in that. Well, how did you navigate what both Elizabeth and Gwen were doing? Yeah.
A lot of people ask me, how did you raise an Olympian? And at the time, I had no clue that we had this potential Olympian in our family. She was a pretty good swimmer, good in our town, never a state champion. And so I say that I raised an Olympian by not trying to raise an Olympian. If we had taken her interest in swimming and pushed her to be really good at it because she had this nugget of talent, it would have been the wrong sport. She tapped out in swimming in her second year of college. She never really did achieve what she wanted in swimming. And then she transitioned to track and found some success in track. But where she really found her success was in triathlon. And I had no clue when she was in third grade that would be the sport for her. And so I just tried to raise good kids that had good friends and, didn't get in trouble and achieved grades good enough to get them into college. And just, and I was a musician, high school choir director. And so I thought music was important and insisted that they do that. And I, also as a high school choir director, I saw the results of parents who put pressure on their kids to play the lead in my musical and how problematic that was for the student and for their friends and for my job as the director. And so I just took, I wasn't a perfect parent, but I took what I thought I wanted to achieve and did my best.
And from my perspective, she never expected us to be perfect children. She expected us to give effort and to try, but never, like I ran cross country and I was never going to be on the varsity squad, but that didn't matter to mom and dad. They were still at every race cheering me on. They were worried, was I improving? Was I getting better from the year before? That's what was important, not, are you going to make that varsity time?
Yeah. So it was more the effort, like the value of working hard, would you say, and just focusing on that and that effort?
Right. You show up. You are a team player. Even though maybe I wasn't a starter on the basketball team my senior year, I still played a role on that team. They couldn't have practiced. They couldn't have scrimmaged 5-on-5 unless we had all 10 girls out there. And so, embracing what our role was and knowing that just because you're not a starter, that doesn't mean that your role isn't important. That doesn't mean that we're not going to sit in the stands and watch the game, even though you might not get any playing time, that it was still cheered on in the same way. Gwen was achieving at a much higher level, but I felt like I was doing my best and she was doing her best, and it was okay that those two bests were different.
Yeah, what was that like for you, Elizabeth, when Gwen was achieving, you said, at this higher level? Because kids can feel so competitive with their siblings and then measure themselves against that sibling, and then it can just cause all this upheaval in the family and arguing, or mom and dad love her more than they love me. Did you ever feel like that?
No. I think part of it's I came first, right? That I was the older one, and so that's what Gwen was compared to. But when I was a senior, I was on the track and field team, and my coach saw in Gwen this just innate run talent. And he anticipated kind of what you're alluding to, that there might be some friction if we get Gwen on the track and field team and Gwen instantly is on the varsity squad and I'm still on JV, and Gwen's going to the sectional and the regional meet and I'm not qualifying for those. And so this coach came to me and just said, your sister's a runner. She really has this talent and I want her on the team. And he relied on me to encourage Gwen, like, look at how much she can contribute to the team. And he was conscious of how I would feel, but he knew that I was a cheerleader for the team and I wanted the team to do really well. And I knew with Gwen on the team, we could do better. I also saw how much Gwen had to suffer to do well in athletics. Like, she has to push her body to a place of pain, and I don't have that in me. And so I think that that's also part of it, that I look at her and I think, I don't want to sacrifice as much as she does. I don't want to push my body to that level. And so I didn't have that kind of jealousy or rivalry. My role is Gwen's biggest fan. And I embrace that. I wear the shirts, I organize cheers, I get family together. Like, that's the role that I thrive in. I know it's not an athletic role.
Wow. I love, you said in the beginning when you were describing yourself, the value was you're a team player.
Yeah.
You're a team player, even if it's, even if I'm not first place on my team or captain of the team, I'm there, I show up, I'm a team player, I care about others. Like, it's not all about me. And I think that is such a beautiful, value to instill in your family. Do you feel like, Nancy, like you can take some credit for that? Or,
we had two really great kids that we were that we were given to raise. And I don't know, I'm not sure where they learned all this. Elizabeth sounds so smart. She's got all the answers here.
But I think you, Mom, as a choir teacher, you always worked with a partner. You were always part of a team. And I even saw you and Dad as a team working together. And together you were stronger than each individual. And so I think that it was maybe modeled more than explicitly talked about.
Right. And, I was always a working mom. I worked full time and I needed help from my husband to keep the family working. And I needed help from the girls. Elizabeth talked about cooking and how, we did have a lot of fun with food, but I also relied on them, to just be helpers in the kitchen and keep the household running. And we did rely on each other to make things work. My husband's one of a huge family. He's one of 10 kids. And so there was always that too. They saw how a family can work together when everybody's got different responsibilities. And and you're right. My job, I always had a teaching partner. I was always in the classroom with somebody. And I also, Elizabeth's kind of talking about cheerleading for the team. I had a lot of activities in my choir classroom too, where if students weren't talented enough to play a lead, I always had a whole roster of leadership roles that they could plug into, the dance captain, the voice captain, the person who organizes the photography, and just generating that kind of atmosphere.
I love that. And I was thinking about what you said, Elizabeth, to that, to kind of build on that, about it was better than okay to be who I am. Like, I did not want to push myself to that point of pain in that sport. Now you're a teacher now. And so you're dealing with different sorts of, discomforts, I'm sure, in your work, and ways that you have to really push yourself and deal with hard things. But it just looks different. Like, your gifts and your talents and the things that you wanted to pursue were different. And one is not, being an Olympic athlete. I mean, like, wow, like, we're wowed by that, but that doesn't make any of us better than anybody else. It's just, we're different and we're gifted in different areas. And to be her best cheerleader.
I think being open to what other people see in you. So as a teacher, I will sometimes say to a student, like, you are a writer or you are a poet. Has anyone told you this before? And the kids will say over and over, no one's ever told me that I'm good at this. And I want them to realize that we do all have talents, and that as an outsider, as a writing teacher, I see those kids. I can just point them out, like, they are a good writer. They have a skill, they have a talent, they have an affinity. And same with Gwen. Right? She didn't even know what triathlon was, but somebody came to her and said, we think on paper you could be an Olympian. And then listening to those people, trusting them, leaning in, I think that that's empowering. And it also helps people see that I have a skill that I might not even know existed.
And isn't that beautiful? You're able to see in the kids what their gifts and talents are, and to look for them.
Right. Those kids, they can't identify that in themselves. My kids are 17 and 18 years old. They haven't read 2 decades worth of student papers. They have no idea how skilled they actually are or aren't.
Well, it's interesting you say that. They're 17 and 18. And I think in today's culture also, it's like you feel this pressure, like, you should figure it out, you should know by now. Or I know for me as a parent also, it's like, well, shouldn't they kind of know what they're good at? And it's like, no, they're still learning about themselves.
I think that's one of the themes that we found, that not everybody achieves their highest performance at the same age. When Gwen was swimming as in elementary school, there were kids that were on that state podium and she wasn't. And her time hadn't come yet. And even in high school, she went to state, but she wasn't a state champion. It took until post-college years. She went to college, she got a CPA degree. She was working for a Big Four accounting firm before she discovered triathlon. And it was 2 years past that when she really achieved her biggest accomplishments. And so I think kids and parents devise a timeline and they say, I want my kid to be the best high school athlete. Well, maybe they won't be a best high school athlete, and maybe they won't be the best college athlete. Who knows when their time is coming? And you have a whole lifetime to figure out when you're going to get really great at something.
Yeah. I was thinking as you were saying that, how when we focus so much on our kids' performance and we push, how it really does kill the joy. And tweens and teens can be resistant. And so the more I think that you push, the more resistant they can become. And we actually get in the way. We don't mean to, but we can get in the way. And I want to quote something Gwen said, my parents never pushed results. They never cared how I did. They were always there for me. And I love that. I think that's just what we're talking about here and what you're talking about, Elizabeth. So, how would you tell a mom that's listening to encourage her kids to find those passions and speak into them in a way that is going to build them up and encourage them?
I think it's just a lot in giving them permission to find the thing that they love. I think, when Gwen was swimming, there were families where swimming was the culture and every kid in the family had to swim. And, from our perspective, we weren't attached to any certain sport or any certain musical instrument. And we just gave each of the girls permission to find something that they loved and then encourage them to follow that passion, but also balance that with some expectations that doesn't become an obsession, that they have some other things in their lives.
I think you also helped us with a growth mindset, that when we had something we were upset about or something that was disappointing to us, yeah, maybe we could complain about it for a little while, but then it was always solution focused. Okay, now what? What are you going to do with that disappointment, with whatever you view as a failure? Maybe it wasn't, maybe it was, like, who knows, who cares? But what are you going to do with that? Who are your resources? Who can you reach out to? What questions can you ask? How can you be held accountable to making changes? I felt like it was very solution focused and not allowing us to say, woe is me, or the world is out to get me. Like, it was never that. It was just, okay, what can you do to be better next time?
Yeah. Well, I want you to, excuse me, explain a little bit, Elizabeth. You mentioned the growth mindset, which I'm sure you are familiar with, the Carol Dweck book and the mindset book. Have you ever read, either one of you ever read that book?
I think so, maybe a long time ago. Don't
She
quote
was
me.
she's a Stanford professor, but she's the first one that came out with the growth mindset and how to cultivate that. And she did all these studies with kids and what motivated them. And you were describing like your mom didn't have that fixed mindset, where it was more that growth mindset. And when you think about the growth mindset, like, what was the biggest focus for the growth mindset?
I just think it was solutions.
Mhm.
Like, what can we do to solve this? And then, like, working backwards. Okay, so how are we going to get there? Who do you need to reach out to? What are the daily habits that we can instill? And just not allowing us to give up. Like, there's always something you can do. And Mom really empowered me to use my voice. Like, if I had a problem with a teacher, Elizabeth, let's practice. What are you going to say to that teacher when you walk up to them tomorrow? And then we would do some role play, and then Mom would probably play devil's advocate or be a really tough, hard-nosed teacher in some of her responses. And then I would have confidence going into that conversation, knowing that Mom just was a lot harder than this teacher is ever going to be on me. And then I was prepared to follow up with, okay, I was unhappy with my paper score. Here's a possible solution. Can I redo it? If I can't redo it, is there extra credit? Is there, all of these things that I could bring to help solve whatever was bothering me.
Wow. Yeah, there was always something, I'm jotting it down, always something to learn from it and stepping out and taking that risk. Because for some kids, talking to a teacher, it is intimidating. And the role playing, I love that you did that, Nancy.
She remembers it better than I do. I guess at the time I probably just thought, well, got to come up with something here.
Yeah, because you were helping her to problem solve rather
Right.
than trying to fix it for her.
Oh yes,
Oh,
mom and dad were not going to fix things for me. No way.
No.
How did you learn that, Nancy? I'm amazed.
I think a lot of it was my experience as a teacher and dealing with parents who did take that route, who assumed control for their children and came in and complained when I didn't cast them as the lead. And they would tell me why their child deserved to play the lead, and go on with this whole litany of reasons about why I had made the wrong choice. And it was just so clear to me that that was not in the best interest of that student. Because first of all, if I'd given them the lead, they probably wouldn't have succeeded, and it would have been a disappointing performance for everybody all around. And a lot of it was just practical too. I didn't have time to be running to school all the time and fighting battles for my kids. That was their responsibility, and they needed to make time to do that.
Yeah. Do you find both as teachers, and I know, Nancy, you're a retired teacher now, but can you see when there's been a kid that parents have rescued them or pushed for them to have the lead and seen them as not getting fair treatment or whatever? Can you see how that has impacted the kid?
Oh, absolutely. And, it impacts. When that was happening with us, we came up with a rule. We had open auditions so that every kid was at every audition and they could see for themselves who was performing the best. And so there was no leaving the room and saying, well, I know I performed better than so-and-so. I just had to have a great audition. Well, they were there and they saw what it was. So every kid was there for the open audition. Parents were banned. There were no parents at auditions. But, even then, of course, the parents came in and there were a few that complained. And not only did it affect the student themselves, and the student was often embarrassed, but it affected their relationships with their peers because, they were the one whose mom came in and complained. And, it affected how they related to their friends. And then if they did get a lead the next time, there was, some skepticism about why did that happen, or was the parent successful? And it just, especially at the high school level, they're ready to handle those kinds of situations on their own.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm thinking of a student that I had last semester whose mom at the beginning of the semester emailed me and said, he will never read out loud. He has selective mutism and he will never write more than one sentence. And I said, I believe, even though I've never met him, I believe he will read out loud and I believe he will write more than one sentence. And the mom said, no, he won't. And it was crushing to me because I know if I have belief in these students, and I also know the structure that I have set up as a teacher, he will do it. And over and over, he proved her wrong. And I would email her occasionally and just say, like, look what he did. And she would discredit it. She said he must have plagiarized, or it must have been like a Mad Lib. He must not have written all of this. And I could just see how he had been taught to believe less of himself. And so I think, like, as parents, as teachers, I always want to say everything that you're doing right, because what I've found is that then they lean into that. Then they have confidence in themselves and then they're willing to try it. So like if a kid's like really good at metaphors, I'll be like, you are the metaphor king. Anyone has problems with metaphors? We got to go to the metaphor king. And then that kid's like, I'm the metaphor king. Like, and even if they were kind of good at them, by the end of the semester, they are awesome because they believed in themselves and because they tried it over and over and over. I do a lot of working out, and my trainer has said to me that he's read some research that if you compliment somebody when they're working out on whatever they're doing, even if they're not doing well, they do it better the next time. So if I'm doing a back squat and my trainer says that back squat is so deep that you are deep in that squat. Next time I'm going to be even deeper, just by that confidence. And so I try to do those same things with my students, and most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time that really helps them achieve.
Wow. Yeah, that motivates more than the focusing on their weakness and how to believe they're capable. I think about what a difference, and we can talk a little bit about mentors, Elizabeth, with how you're speaking into that boy's life, and mirroring that he's capable. And if anybody's listening and you have a kid that you're doubting that they're capable or they're going to be able to do something, that's the whole growth mindset. When we say, no, I can't, or if I try, I might fail, that's fixed mindset. So why try at all? But that's that growth mindset that he can put in that effort. He just needed somebody to really believe in him.
And with the structure that I have set up, every day, every kid reads something out loud. We have a particular order that we go in, and it is much more uncomfortable for the kid to pass or to not read than it is to just participate. And it's hard for me to communicate those things with parents, but it's like, trust me, I've been doing this for a long time. I can get them to do things. Just let's all be on the same team. Let's all work together.
Yeah, putting in that effort. You can do it.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then when they do it, building off of that, it wasn't the perfect sentence. It wasn't the perfect short story. Totally fine. But you use the M dash and you have never used the M dash before. Let's try it again. Let's try it in a different way. And then they're like, oh, punctuation can be fun. Like, sure, why not?
I would have loved to have had a teacher like you. Like, be on the lookout for what your kid is doing well and how you're even using humor. Like, was it metaphor? You were the metaphor king.
Yes. And I can't expect my students to be more excited than I am. Right. So I try to get up there every day with this excitement and we just did end of the year reflections. And that's one thing that they said over and over was, no matter what happened, you were always excited. And it's like, that's good, right? I want them to know that writing and reading, it's a pleasure. We read because it enriches our lives. It makes what we do better. And I want them to experience a bit of that.
Yeah, you make it fun. Like, hearing you talk about it is I get excited about it.
I can't wait to see what you write with a metaphor and an M dash.
So being out on the lookout for just those little ways that you can affirm your kids. And you also did something interesting that research shows, where you didn't say, oh, you're a good artist. You're an artist. Like, you called them that. And I don't know why, but with the research I've read, that's supposed to be more powerful than, yeah.
And I think, Mom, you did that too, in giving those kids in your classroom roles.
Right.
Yeah.
And, just other little things, in performances, each student had to introduce themselves and introduce their song. And we always insisted that they couldn't say, my name is Nancy. They had to say, I am Nancy and I am singing such and such. So it was just, an ownership of who they are. And they're not just named something, they are that person. So yeah, all those little tricks just kind of help to confirm those positive things.
Yeah, it's I am. Wow, just that little tweak, rather than my name is, I am. I love that. I've never heard that before.
I heard a lot of kids introduce themselves in songs, and
yeah,
gotta get it right.
Yeah. So how important is it to have heroes for our kids? And you even were saying, how there's not a whole lot of books written for girls on having heroes. So who wants to speak to that, about the importance of having heroes?
You want me to, huh? I graduated from high school in 1972, the same year that Title IX passed. And I think since then, we've had a whole lot more heroes who are representative of the females in the world. And it shows in things like what Gwen achieved. You know, when she set out to do this, there was a swim team, there was a track team, there was a ski team, there were all the things for girls. And so she had something to look to and people before her. And she has continued that. In triathlon, you know, there were women ahead of her. In running, Shalane Flanagan, there's just so many people who have set an example that she can follow. And, you know, comparing that to what I had when I graduated in high school, we had a half-court basketball team because they didn't think girls could play full court. There was no track team. I couldn't look to, you know, my older cousin and say, oh, wow, she ran track. I think I want to do that. Or, you know, a friend down the street. Oh, she played basketball. I think I want to do that. There were no examples of heroes like that. And I think that the heroes that we do have played a huge part in Gwen's life and in every child's life. You know, if you've got a model and you see something that looks like you'd like to do it, I think it gives you the confidence to try it.
Yeah. How do you find them? Like, how do you help your kids to find some of those heroes?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it is in books. It's what's on the bookshelves. You know, where do kids first see people that they want to emulate? And a lot of it is in the library, that was the motivation for this book, that, you know, the kids go to the shelves and they see, well, Muhammad Ali and LeBron James and a whole bunch of male sports heroes, a lot of them older. But, you know, who do they have? I guess there's, you know, some modern gymnasts that are on the shelves now, but there really aren't that many female heroes in the books for kids to read about. And I mean, that's not the whole solution, but it's one place where somebody could go and find somebody that's doing what they want to do.
I think a lot of times kids find heroes at school too.
Mm-hmm.
I'm even thinking, you know, I have some kids who they don't know what's possible in the world as a career, right? They're graduating. What are they going to do with their lives? And just kind of putting a little bug out there of, I worked for the Milwaukee Bucks as an intern for a while, and that gets the kids going, you worked for the Bucks? And they want to know, like, what is that like? And then how do you use writing in these different careers, and just kind of walking them through that. And now, especially with social media as well, people can dive into whoever they are inspired by. If you've got a person you're interested in, look them up. They're probably on Instagram or wherever, and you can ask them. You could just DM them. And a lot of times those heroes will get back to you. They want to inspire the next generation.
You're reminding me when I was teaching, I would have recent graduates come into the class and speak, especially to my freshman boys choir. I had 80 boys in a freshman choir every year, all different sizes, all different interests. And there was this one boy in particular who was a big guy. He played football. He had a chance of a scholarship in football or a scholarship as a tenor in the opera program.
Wow.
And he chose to be a tenor in the opera program. But I would have him come in and he was this big presence, you know, and he'd say, yeah, you know, I played football last year for Arrowhead High School, and, you know, give his stats, how many, I don't know, tackles he made or whatever. But just to see him and then hear him sing, I never called him a hero. I just said, yeah, you know, Alex is in town. He's off studying opera. He wants to come in and practice singing a little bit. So he would sing for these 80 freshman boys. Well, he was a hero to that boy sitting there who didn't want to play football, who maybe wasn't good at soccer, but who had a beautiful voice and was wondering, can I sing, and can I still be a man? And here was this, you know, somebody within his age range, within 3 or 4 years, who was showing him, yes, you can do this.
And I was in this same choir 4 years ago. I was
Right.
you. And it's cool. You know, they feel all this social pressure. And when you see someone who's doing it, who you admire, it gives you that confidence that, like we were talking about before.
And permission to do what you really want to do.
Yeah. I was thinking, and he, you know, if his parents would have been pushing him, had this agenda for football and just been focusing and pushing, then his greatest interest, being singing opera, being that tenor, could have gotten missed. And, you know, and so, yeah, allowing your kid to really pursue what they are passionate about, not not necessarily what we want them to pursue. And my daughter, by the way, she sang opera, my youngest, and I just loved it because I was in choir, but I never had the voice, So she was getting all the solos and the leads and the musicals. And then she decided, I want to pursue other things right now. And she's currently she sings, but she's not singing like she was. And I just remember like, that she wasn't doing that, but she had different interests that she wanted to pursue. Even though she does love to sing, she didn't want to be a voice major in college and go after that. And I just had to realize, wow, she's gifted in so many ways and she's going after that. But it was more about me kind of wanting to live through that because I never had that good of a voice. And I always thought it would be super cool. So.
Well, and I did have other examples where the parents did put pressure on the kids. And there was this one boy who he desperately wanted to sing in college. And his parents decided there's no money in that. And so you're going to go and you're going to major in chemistry, or it was some science. And he came back after a year clinically depressed and just he couldn't go back. And eventually did follow what he really loved to do. But, it doesn't work when the parents' dreams are forced on the kid.
Yeah. And it's so interesting how Gwen didn't even know, that was just such an unfolding. You had no, you couldn't have imagined that at the time that she would be where she is now.
No, you had to like bribe Gwen to ride a bike with like ice cream, didn't you?
Yes. She only wanted to swim. And so, yeah, we like to take these family bike rides, and she didn't want to go because, I don't know, she thought she needed to be in the pool or something. And so we'd promise her ice cream at the ice cream thing on the trail if she would go with us.
Yeah. So what has this been like since you've written this book? Have you heard from you? I'm imagining you've heard from people, like you said, even adults that have been inspired by the book. What has this whole process been like for you?
It's been, well, I think the best thing has been that the three of us collaborated on it. Elizabeth and I were primarily ghostwriters for Gwen, but Gwen had some great ideas that she contributed to the book, and she fact checked everything that we wrote. And of course, it's her story. And so we had to be faithful to her and her story. And Elizabeth and I we edit each other's works we have for years. And it's just fun to put ideas down on paper and then have her take my idea and make it so much better. And yeah, it's been, the project itself, just the process was, I think, the best thing.
And as teachers, our hope is that it can be used in classrooms, or that teachers know about it and then they can share it with their students. And so we also created an educator guide, which could be used by teachers or coaches, but also parents. So if you wanted to read the book alongside your child, we have all of these activities, lessons, worksheets, suggestions, questions that you can use. It's free from our publisher. And so we can put a link in the show notes for anyone listening if they wanted to check that out or use it. We're also offering author talks to groups, to sports teams. We really just want kids to know that the book's out there. And if they're interested, they can check it out at their local library, or they can get it at their local bookstore. And we hope that they read it and that they feel inspired to chase whatever dreams they have.
I love that. What's that looking like that you're speaking to sports groups?
Well, we're kind of, we try to manage everything. I'm also teaching full time, so we do the best that we can. We've done some talks. We were at a local help me, Mom, with the name.
Coffee shop, Good Harvest. Yeah.
Yes. And some kids showed up and they had like their pencils and they were filling out these questions, and we were talking about like process goals. And so to hear what these little kids want to work on, and then moving backwards, kind of like we were talking about with the growth mindset, what do I need to do in order to get there? Who are those people that can help me? Who are the heroes that I have that I could reach out to or lean on? It's been fun to see kids and parents working together on goals.
I love that. So helping them, yeah. How do you think, how would you encourage parents to help their kids with setting goals? Do you start with what they're interested in first and then build from there? How can they help their kids?
Yeah, Gwen has this thing where every day she writes down 3 things she did well and 3 things she wants to improve on. And I think a lot of it is it's just the discipline of sitting down with not, maybe a mentor or a parent or somebody, and writing down in a concrete way what you want to achieve. And then following it up with, well, the next day, what did I do well that helped me work toward my goal, and what can I still improve on? It's not, I don't think there's any big secret except just to make it concrete and think about it and document it.
And I think most kids know what they want to improve. They have this goal that's out there, just giving them the space to talk about it. And also the grace that the goal will change. And that's okay. Like, just because you say this is your goal doesn't mean you can't change that goal tomorrow, or that it won't be totally different in a week. And Gwen's a great model or hero for that. She said she wanted to win the gold medal in the marathon, and she didn't do it, but that's okay. Her goal has changed. She's now chasing a different goal. And so just knowing that even though you write it down, it doesn't mean it's set in stone.
Well, and also I think it's important, and parents can help here, to distinguish between the big overall ambition. Do you want to win the gold medal? That's great. Put that down. But what really is your goal? And those goals should be more daily process goals. If you want to win the gold medal, say in the marathon, then your goal should be maybe the first day, I'm going to run 1 block. And I'm going to, eat healthy for breakfast and lunch and maybe one other thing. And to help kids break that down, because the goal of I want to win the Olympic medal in marathon, that isn't very productive. You need some daily goals to actually direct yourself.
Yeah, to work towards as baby steps.
Mm-hmm.
Do you encourage parents to do that as well? To write down their goals with their kids?
I think everybody should do it. Yes.
We did that at the dinner, the
Right.
little talk that we did. All the adults wrote it down, and my partner was there and my dad was there, and it was so fun. I learned so much about people that I thought I knew completely. They wowed me with what their goals were. And it was really fun. Provided some dialogue and also some follow-up, right? You said at that dinner 2 months ago that you wanted to play X number of rounds of golf this summer. How's that goal going?
Well, and just writing it down, it can be so powerful to making it happen.
Right.
So how is your golf going?
Well, that was my dad.
Oh, that was your dad. That was your mom.
Yeah. Mom, how's Dad's golf rounds? Are they coming along?
He's getting them in, let me tell you. That was an easy goal for him to sit down because he loves to golf.
Yeah, and it's definitely here because we're not too far away from each other. It's the time to golf.
Yes,
Yeah.
It's beautiful weather. Yeah.
Yes. So as we're getting ready to close, what are you hoping for the readers to really take away from the book? As an
English teacher, I want them to read it and like it. I want them to have a pleasurable experience with a book. Gwen in the book writes letters to the reader, and she also encourages the reader to write back to her. And so I would love to see some teens and tweens write letters to Gwen and then actually send them, put them in her DMs on Instagram, and then receive a response from Gwen back.
And I think I would like people to look at her story and realize that it was never a straight path from, 3rd grade swimmer to the Olympic podium. And in whatever our goals are, or our passions, our pursuits, that there are going to be some disappointments, and we have to refocus. We have to maybe choose a different goal or decide to approach a goal in a different way. And even for Olympic champions, there are setbacks, a lot of them along the way, and disappointment and frustration, and opportunity to look at those situations and refocus and set your life on a different path.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, the ups and downs and learning from them, and continuing to pursue those goals wherever they're going to end up taking you.
Right.
And it is about the process and about the people, those relationships that you build, the fun that you can have.
Well, and I'm also thinking for how important it is for our kids and for us, because you also say this book is for adults to inspire adults too, to know that our life has meaning and purpose, and wherever we are, that we can have a positive purpose in serving other people as well, which I'm really struck. Gwen's doing that. Nancy, you're doing that. Elizabeth, you're doing that with where you feel like your gifts and talents are and you can make an impact. And that's very inspiring.
You're never too old to change a path or to make a difference. You know, I tell my students that all the time, that I still don't know what I want to do with my life. That's okay. That's okay. You know, I can decide next year to still be a teacher or not, or do something else. Like, that's the great thing about life, is you get to decide.
Yeah, that we're in process, just like you said. I love it. I love it. Well, tell them where to find you, where to get the book. I can't wait for them to buy it and read it and do that. And do the questions come with the book, or do they download that somewhere else?
Yep, they can download the educator guide. We'll put it in the show notes with the podcast. They can also find it on our publisher's website. You can just Google it too, you know, title of the book and then educator guide, and it will pop up. You can get the book anywhere books are sold. We, of course, want to encourage people to patronize their local bookstores if at all possible. We have a local bookstore, Books and Company, in Oconomowoc, Wisconsin. It's a mouthful. That they're offering signed copies of the book at no extra charge. And so we can put that link in the show notes as well if people are interested in a signed copy. You can find us on social media. You can also find Gwen on all the social media channels. She's just at Gwen Jorgensen. She's got a great YouTube channel. She's very active on Instagram.
Yeah.
What did I miss? Anything, Mom?
I'm just going to emphasize that the signed copies are also signed by the 2016 Olympic champion, Gwen Jorgensen herself.
Yeah. That's awesome. Okay, well, those will all go in the show notes so that they can easily access that. And when it's up in a blog, we'll have it there as well.
Yeah, and if anyone is interested in an author talk, or if they have kids who have questions for us, we would love to connect with them. So just reach out to us via our websites or our email, and we would love to help out in any way.
Wonderful. Any final parting words?
Thank you for having us on. This was so fun.
It was a great conversation. Thank you.
Yeah, I loved it. Thank you for coming on, because I know that the parents that are listening are going to take away some really good nuggets to inspire and encourage their kids. So yeah, thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you.